Hey there everyone, it's Courtney here from Simply No Knead. Today we are baking the Sweet Fruit Loaf. I'm going to be demonstrating the scratch recipe using our unbleached white flour, but you can also make it with the sweet bread mix. So we'll talk about that as we go. Okay, everyone with your measurements, we're going to start off with 450 grams of the untreated white bread flour. So I've measured that out. Then we're going to go in with our yeast, bread improver, and salt. Give that a stir through. Then the rest of our dry ingredients. So our sugar, mixed spice, and cinnamon. Give that a mix so it's all evenly combined. Now, if you were making this using the sweet bread mix, same principles, you just don't need to add in the salt and the bread improver. So just follow the recipe if you are making that. Then your sultanas or raisins and your fruit medley. Wonderful. And then your liquids. So I've got milk, warm water, and then I've just melted my butter in that as well. So make a little well in the middle. And then you're going to tip in most of the liquid and give it a little bit of a stir. We don't want the mix too wet, so I always like to put in a little bit less and then add in a little bit more as we need. It's much harder to get the dough consistency right if you put in too much liquid as opposed to a bit drier and then adding a little bit in. So let's try this amount and then we're just going to give it a good stir, giving it a turn and cutting action. So spinning around, giving it a bit of a cut in the middle. So here you can see my dough is still a bit too dry, so I'm going to add in the rest of that liquid. And the same if you need a little bit more. So it should be sticky and a bit shaggy. Just come together, not too wet, and you certainly don't want the dough to be sloppy. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more warm water. You would think when you make this loaf, it would always be exactly the same, but for some reason, whether it's the temperature in the air, the room, it's never exactly the same amount of liquid. Alright, that's coming together really nicely. Make sure you're scraping all of the dough from the sides of your bowl. Okay, so my dough here, I'm going to show you that. It does still have a few little dry bits, but we are going to give it a little bit of a stretch and fold to bring it together. I'm not going to add any more fluid to this because then it is going to be a little bit too sticky. So we are going to give it some stretch and folds. Now, once your dough has come together, we're going to follow our Simply No Knead method. So boiling your batch top, or you can use some water, but I like to use some oil. Right, using your dough mate, scraping all the dough out from the bowl. Try not to leave any dough in your bowl, makes it much easier for cleaning. Wonderful. Nice and clean. Okay, now using our hands, we're going to do some stretch and folds. Now this is a much easier technique than the old school kneading. So what we're going to do, using your fingers and either oiling or with water, you're just going to make a rectangle, so pressing the dough outwards slightly. From here, we're going to work the gluten. So stretching out away from you and then folding it over. Okay, little press, do the side, stretching it out, fold it over. Another little press, stretching it out, fold it over, and then the side closest to you, stretching it out, fold it over. Okay, let gravity help you pull it around. Amazing. Oil your bowl lightly just so it doesn't stick. And then your dough is going to go back in your bowl. You're going to cover that up. Something heavy, not just a tea towel. We want that moisture to stay in. And then we're going to leave it for about 20 minutes. Let it rise. And then we're going to come back and do another set of stretch and folds. In the meantime, tidy up. Okay, so we left that for about 20 minutes. Growing in size a little bit. So back onto your oiled or damp bench. Using your dough mate, take out the dough. And we're going to do another stretch and fold again. So exactly the same way we did before. So damp hands, stretching it out a little bit with the fingertips. You'll be able to feel it'll have a bit more give. It'll be a bit more stretchy. So from here, lifting it up and folding it over, pushing it out, stretching it out, folding it over, stretching it out. Try not to rip the dough. We just want to bring some tension and work that gluten. And then towards you, stretch it out, and then flip it over. Okay, roll it over into a nice smooth ball. Back into your oiled bowl. This time, we're going to cover it again. And then we're going to leave it until it doubles in size. So make sure you take a really good look, depending on the warmth, but you want to leave it somewhere warm. So it could be on top of the stove. It could be, if you're in a really cold room, fill the sink with a little bit of warm water and you can pop the bowl covered in there to help it. Half an hour to an hour, all depends, just make sure it doubles in size. And then we're going to come back to it. Okay, so our dough has doubled in size. So we're going to flour our surface now. Using our dough mate, you're going to just gently, it should slide out. You've greased your bowl, so just gently guide it out onto your bench. Using our dough cutter, we're going to cut the dough in half. And then we're going to shape our dough. Okay, so from here, flour both sides. Just so it's got a nice coating so it doesn't stick. Gently flour your fingertips. And we're just going to create a bit of structure and shape it. So going around, you're going to grab the dough and work it into it, the center. Round. And you're just going to work it around in a circle. You will feel that the dough will start getting a bit tighter. This is perfect. This is what we want. Okay. So just around a couple of times and then flip it over and you should have a nice smooth ball on the top there. Keep that fruit in there. And then on the other side, bringing that around into a nice tight ball, flipping it over, and all be nice and smooth on top. Perfect. All right, so from here, you've got nice two smooth dough balls. We're going to grease our tin. So a little bit of the oil. using your pastry brush. Make sure you grease generously all down the bottom and all up the sides. And then your dough balls are going to go into the tin. And then you're going to leave this uncovered, again in a nice warm place, until the dough doubles in size. So keep an eye, this dough is about halfway up the tin. And so I'm going to let it rise up to the top of the tin, but whatever tin you're using doubles in size, let it rise uncovered in a nice warm place. And we'll come back to it and it's ready to bake. Okay, so my dough has doubled in size. It's nearly just at the top of the tin. I've coated it with the milk glaze. You can use the sticky glaze at the end if you like. It's now going to go into a hot oven, 200 degrees Celsius fan force, and we're going to cook it for about 25 to 30 minutes until it's nice and golden on top. Okay, here it is. So tip it out onto your cooling rack. Should just, oh, it's hot. All right, so you're going to, it's nice and brown. It's going to be a bit darker because the cinnamon and the spices in there. So tip it out onto a cooling rack, give it a little jig. Beautiful. And then you're going to let it cool. Again, if you want to add your glaze onto the top, you can. Otherwise, this is going to be really delicious. Try not to cut it straight away. I know it looks delicious, but it's going to keep cooking for a little bit. So leave it, and then you're going to be left with this beautiful sweet fruit loaf. Enjoy!